The following slideshow is a critical reflection of the 3 lessons designed for the Year 4 to 6 class at Sandy Plains State School. The lessons have been developed as part of a unit that examines the features of fantasy texts. The summative assessment requires students to use the conceptual knowledge learnt throughout the lessons and create an imaginative response applying those concepts. The focus of these 3 lessons is for students to learn specific language features to successfully write the first chapter of a fantasy text for the summative assessment of the unit of work. This assessment requires students to establish a good and evil character as well as a setting. The 3 lessons I designed take place after the first lesson that collects data on the prior knowledge and understanding students already have of language features within texts. With this goal in mind, I set about creating the lessons to align the learning goals to the requirements of the Australian curriculum, and as students have progressively touched on the focus language features each previous year, ensured that the Year 3 to 6 ability levels were being addressed. I created the sequence of lessons focusing on the structural features of the school, appropriate pedagogical features to implement the lessons, effective utilisation of the knowledge and skills of other stakeholders within the learning environment, and the required personal and professional attributes of effective teachers to guide and encourage successful, positive, self-regulated learners. Sandy Plains State School is located 900 kilometres west of Brisbane in Queensland and has 78 students, with 26 identifying as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. The Year 4 to 6 class is made up of 27 of those students, who are mainly from the local farming community. While there are some services located in Sandy Plains, the majority of families are based out at farms and travel up to an hour to come to school. The area is currently in a severe drought and families are under significant financial and emotional strain due to the pressure of maintaining an income to support their families during this time. The community self-image is based on the history and tradition of the area. This is a farming town, and due to this, some students believe that a formal education is unlikely to offer what they require, as it's expected by their families that they will work on the farm when they're old enough. Sandy Plains is a tight-knit community though, and as they all appreciate the importance and impact of the network of services and relationships that are present here. As a new teacher at the school, I have made considerable effort to build positive relationships with the family that make up the community to capitalise on this cohesion and bring it into my learning environment. Studies show that these factors directly influence student attendance, so I designed the lessons to encourage students' engagement using the foundations of the strong positive relationships built within the learning environment and the wider community. While the relationships I have built with the students are used to support the structural features of my classroom, I have also implemented routines to support students' transition to school after travelling the long distances. As part of the morning routine prior to school beginning, I allow 15 minutes for students to have the piece of fruit allocated to this time or the toast I've made for breakfast club while I read the class story. This routine has been approved through consultation with my students' families as a way to settle them after the long bus or car ride into town. This transitions students into being ready to learn prior to the school day starting, keeping the focus on engagement and learning during these times. I planned for a range of pedagogical approaches to meet the diverse needs of the learners within my class. This means that differentiation is seamless throughout the lessons as the focus remains on what the students are required to learn, as well as ensuring they can each access the learning in a number of different ways, depending on their individual needs. Explicit instruction is the main pedagogical approach I utilise, as students need to learn to identify, understand, then apply the use of specific language features to meet the learning goals of the unit. Each of these skills need to be taught explicitly by the teacher for students to understand how language features can be used within a fantasy text. I use the gradual release of responsibility to grant students the opportunities to construct a deeper understanding of the concepts, not only with each rotation, but also throughout the individual lessons and the 3-lesson mini-unit. This process provides students opportunities to identify the language feature, describe the purpose to better understand the language feature, then apply this understanding to develop and practice writing a description of the main character and setting, with access to the teacher throughout each learning phase, then progressing to more independent work. I also use Bloom's taxonomy as an integral factor when planning the lessons. This approach allows me to move the students through the levels of thinking skills sequentially. That way I can ascertain if students require more scaffolding and then guide them through the higher levels of thinking to confidently apply the concepts in the writing. in particular for my gifted student. I decided to conduct a modelled writing activity prior to the students writing their own to ensure they understand the requirements of the writing task within Lesson 4. This modelling demonstrates explicitly the behaviours of experienced writers, including editing to ensure the language features are present within their writing and verbalisation of the thinking process when writing, providing another scaffold for Indigenous ESL and EALD students. I employed the Maker model to guide differentiation choices to support the students. The 8 Ways of Aboriginal Learning and resources that assist ESL and EALD students are designed with specific learners in mind, but I decided to use them for the whole class. These tools assist students to access the learning in a number of different ways, supporting them to choose the strategy that works best for them, encouraging development of successful, self-regulated learners. The yarning circles and deconstruction and reconstruction of knowledge are tools aligned to the learning culture of Indigenous Australians, as well as ESL and EALD learners. I plan to use these tools to support the construction of learning for all students to provide another scaffold for exploring the concept and reinforce the positive collaborative culture of the classroom through the sharing of personal experience and prior knowledge, adjusting both the process and product of the Maker model. The texts explored throughout the lessons were chosen for enjoyment and engagement as they are age and reading level appropriate for the students. I believe these types of texts are more appealing to these age groups than other texts, for example, Indigenous texts, as the themes of the chosen books are humour and fantasy intended for children. These choices of texts also provide an adjustment to the process of differentiation while maintaining student engagement. This engagement not only supports knowledge acquisition, but also encourages students to enjoy the learning they're participating in, providing another form of motivation to continue attending school and develop into successful self-regulated learners. The conceptual grouping within the multi-age classroom places focus on the learning needs of students rather than only the requirements of the curriculum based on their year level. The first lesson in the unit provided the pre-data to group students for subsequent lessons, allowing alignment of learning needs as well as meeting the demands of the curriculum. This adjusted the content for some individuals as groups contain students from each of the year levels. The small grouping and pairing within the conceptual groups are designed to support the ESL and EALD learners, limiting the amount of languages being used throughout the activity. This process adjustment supports these students by providing a buddy who can adapt their language to that of the ESL or EALD learner, avoiding confusion and maintaining focus on the concept being explored. Pairs and small groups are also beneficial for gifted students as it allows them to focus on relationships as well as the learning and concepts being explored. I made no adjustments to the learning environment during Lesson 2 and 3 as the class layout is planned to allow for easy access to resources, safe traffic flow during transitions, and collaboration every day. This planning ensures furniture is placed appropriately and students are prepared for learning. The learning environment is also based on the culture of collaboration outlined by McLennan and Peel. This culture encourages students to work respectfully with their peers and teachers, allowing discussions, questions, and ideas to be shared in a constructive and collaborative manner. The culture of collaboration is created and maintained through the routines and expectations of the learning environment, agreed upon through consultation between myself and the students. I made one adjustment to the learning environment in Lesson 4 by providing the word wall that was co-constructed during Lesson 3 as a prompt to support all students during the beginning stages of writing their main character and setting description. This differentiation tool encourages students to decide which examples apply to their needs and remove some of the anxiety around beginning a writing activity, particularly if students have limited experience writing in this way. The word wall also provides Indigenous ESL and EALD students prompts to draw their characters and then words to refer to when labelling these drawings. I plan these lessons with a teacher aide as a participant of the gradual release of responsibility to support the students in developing the knowledge and skills to use language features effectively within their writing. When I started at Sandy Plains State School, I introduced myself to the staff and ascertained who I would be working with directly in my learning environment. I organised a time to get together for after tea in my room so we could understand each other's expectations of our relationship, as well as identify strengths that could be capitalised on for the benefit of the students. I also took the opportunity to inform the teacher aides of how I like to implement transitions and blocks of learning. As the teacher aides had relationships with the students already, they offered insights into some of the students' interests that assisted me in developing my planning of transitions and activities further. We also exchanged contact details and identified which form of communication works best for each of us. This informal meeting broke the ice and formed the foundation of our mutually respectful relationships. This has meant that if any miscommunication or misunderstanding has occurred, we're able to discuss the issue efficiently and effectively to come to a positive resolution for the benefit of ourselves and the students. Prior to the beginning of each unit, the teacher aides and myself get together so I can outline their role and expectations within the planned lessons. I show them where the necessary resources will be stored and give them a copy of the timetable for their time in the class. They ask any clarifying questions, which also helps to eliminate any confusion. If changes do occur, we have each other's contact details to inform each other of the changes prior to the lessons, allowing the organisation of the learning environment to run smoothly. As a teacher, I hold certain expectations of myself to benefit my students' learning. These expectations take the form of the personal and professional attributes that I believe have the most positive impact on my students and their ability to learn successfully. It is also incumbent of me to meet the requirements of the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers. As a teacher, I need to have a deep understanding of the concepts I am teaching to ensure students benefit from my guidance. If I was to teach them a concept incorrectly, I would be negatively impacting their future learning and learning ability, doing them a disservice. While I am not always going to be correct, I need to make the effort to ensure that the content I am teaching is correct to the best of my knowledge, and if it isn't, take that opportunity to develop my own understanding further, whether in collaboration with the students, on my own, or with my fellow teachers. My main goal is to develop and guide my students to become successful self-regulated learners, so it's my responsibility to role model what that actually looks like. My positive, encouraging and flexible disposition is the foundation of the behaviours of a self-regulated learner. Through this, I can plan and provide engaging lessons based on students' interests, assisting them to look forward to learning rather than having a sense of dread or anxiety towards school. This engagement of my learners provides the mindset to successfully take on new challenges, stretching their belief in their own abilities. Planning to allow for discussions and sharing of ideas demonstrates to students that they are valued members of our learning environment, also building confidence and self-efficacy. The personal and professional attribute I believe is most important to students is demonstrating that I will always try to do my best, even if I have made a mistake. None of us are infallible, and that is an important lesson for young people to learn. We all make mistakes, but as long as we own them, then rectify them, making the apologies required along the way to solve the problem the mistake has created, then we are simply doing our best, which is all anyone can ask of us. With this attitude in mind and my desire to meet the demands of the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers graduate level, I can lead my students by example towards being lifelong successful learners. To conclude this critical reflection of the lesson plan I designed, I believe the choices I made when planning to teach language features to the Year 4 to 6 class at Sandy Plains State School meet the goals of not only the 3 lessons and the requirements of the English curriculum, but also assist in the development of students becoming self-regulated learners. By using the data available regarding the structural features of the school and determining which pedagogical features would best suit my learners, I planned for lessons that capitalised on the effective participation of stakeholders and my personal and professional attributes to engage students in the acquisition of the knowledge and skills to successfully apply language features to their writing.